Every consulting firm knows the feeling of a massive win. You land a multi-million-dollar legacy modernization contract. The team is fully staffed. The delivery milestones are met right on schedule. From the outside, the project looks like the perfect revenue engine. But underneath that pristine exterior, invisible fractures are forming. Look at this chart comparing typical project financials. The green line shows top-line revenue climbing steadily. Everything seems perfectly healthy. But follow the red line, your actual profit margin. You model the engagement at a healthy 30 to 35% margin. Yet by the time the project wraps, that number drops to single digits. Sometimes it goes completely negative. High billable hours and long-running timelines create a false sense of security. Revenue tracks how much work is being built, but it obscures the operational friction that gradually eats away at the project's efficiency. The symptoms of this friction are quiet. Your most expensive senior architects get burned out on manual, repetitive tasks. Timelines stretch just a few weeks past their initial estimates. Because these issues never trigger client escalations or fail the project, leadership accepts them as a normal part of the process. Technical execution is only half the battle. In legacy modernization, economic inefficiency is the silent killer, demanding a forensic look at how a project's profit margin actually dies. Let's look at day one of a newly launched legacy migration. On paper, you have a strong 30% profit margin locked in. This chart tracks the impact of hidden costs over time. The first hit comes during discovery. Old systems rarely have accurate documentation, so your team spends weeks reverse engineering decades of code just to understand the dependencies. That initial phase drags on, and right away, your margin drops to 22%. Then the delivery phase starts. You have highly paid senior engineers on the project, but instead of designing the new architecture, they spend countless hours interpreting unfamiliar logic for the rest of the team. This low-leverage work slices the margin down to 18%. Relying on your highest-paid staff to act as human encyclopedias is a dual threat. It directly erodes your profitability by misusing expensive resources, and it creates a massive attrition risk. Your best engineers do not want to spend their days untangling 30-year-old code. Before your team writes a single line of modern code, the project's financial ceiling has already collapsed. Now watch the margin as the team starts actively building and testing. This introduces the rework penalty. Because the business logic was fragmented and poorly understood during discovery, features are built on incorrect assumptions. They fail validation, QA cycles double in length, and the margin drops to 12%. Finally, development grinds to a halt. The team hits an undocumented edge case, and 20 people are stuck waiting on a veteran employee who remembers how the system was built in the 90s. That bottleneck delay drives your final margin to 5%. In a fixed bid environment, every hour spent waiting or rewriting code comes directly out of your pocket. The effort compounds, but the revenue stays exactly the same. The most dangerous part of this entire cycle is how quietly it happens. The software eventually ships. The client signs off. Because there are no alarms or failed deliverables, leadership never investigates the financial bleed. Instead of fixing the operational friction, consulting firms adapt to it. They start adding arbitrary padding to their future estimates, baking the inefficiency directly into their proposals. They mistake systemic financial rot for standard operating procedure, institutionalizing a deeply flawed delivery model. High-performing firms recognize a specific truth. Legacy modernization is an information problem. They understand that delivery speeds up only when the logic of the system is finally visible. This insight dictates the delivery strategy. Rather than throwing more billable hours at manual research, these firms front-load the project with AI-driven analysis to maintain efficiency. This is where Codora introduces a structural advantage. By using AI to instantly generate structured, system-level documentation, it removes the discovery delays that typically drag down the early phases of a project. With a centralized AI knowledge layer, junior engineers query the system directly. Your most expensive architects no longer spend their days translating old code, freeing them up to focus on high-value architectural decisions. By extracting the core business logic up front, developers build new features based on accurate assumptions from day one. This proactive understanding skips the rework cycles and keeps the project on track. Because this system intelligence is persistent and searchable, you bypass the tribal knowledge bottleneck. Your delivery is never dependent on one veteran's memory. Ultimately, modernizing a system is only profitable if you modernize the economics of the delivery itself. By building on a foundation of clear system intelligence, firms ensure that project success translates directly to the P&L.